Hi, hello, and welcome back to a podcast where I talk about going from corporate drone to corporate dropout. You know it, you love it. Welcome back to chaos and fuckery. Now, like I said, Thursday's episodes are going to be all about lessons learned through business thus far as a small business owner, because believe it or not, I've been owning a business of different varieties for a long time now. While I never stuck with it long enough to, see the benefit of my reward, if you will, of my work, prior to starting my fitness coaching business, I was actually a photographer, a wedding photographer with my husband. And the shutdowns of 2020 when COVID came through made rebuilding that business extremely difficult, right as I probably could have had a pretty big opportunity with TikTok dropping. It was hard to get into, the wedding space when so many weddings were elopements or small and not doing the big vendors, due to the fact that everything was shut down. But there is one lesson that I have learned through both that business and my current business ventures, and that is don't work for family or friends or with them. That is full stop. Do not intertwine personal relationships with business. And I will fully stand by this stance going forward as a business owner because I've tried it two different ways. As a photographer, I wanted experience in weddings because I knew that's where I wanted to go. While I had shot a lot of outdoorsy things and a lot of action prior to that and edited a lot of that, and even gone as far as I did some engagement shoots when I was a little bit younger and I did sorority stuff. I wanted wedding experience, and my wedding experience came through family allowing me to shoot not as an official photographer, but to play around at their weddings. They had their own photographers, or at least that's what I was told when I agreed to bring my camera. Now, what really happened is my family absolutely screwed me and my husband, who was shooting with me, over, and either hired a photographer who was not reliable and left halfway through the ceremony, therefore putting the pressure on me and my husband to take everything after the first dance, which was a lot, on top of taking things like portraits that their photographer didn't do for some reason. And then on top of that, at the next family wedding that I was bringing my camera to, I got asked to do bridals before the wedding, turn them around in 24 hours, and then shoot the wedding that I wasn't supposed to be shooting solo with my husband. We only had one camera at this wedding. So being able to shoot both of us and, get all of the shots that everybody wanted and appease my family member was nearly impossible. On top of that, at the second wedding, my family was extremely particular about what shots they wanted because they didn't get it out of the photographer the first time. And that was unfortunate. For me, for my husband, it made my relationship with my family change a little bit. I'm not going to lie, because stories were told and there was a lot of drama involving us going with a group of the family to go pick up gear, given that we weren't expecting to be shooting the wedding by ourselves and didn't have a flash for an outdoor wedding, as we weren't supposed to be the sole photographers. So we went with a group of family to pick up extra gear that we didn't bring with us as a rental, and that apparently started a whole bunch of drama. Mind you, I was not getting paid for either of these weddings, and that's partially on me and early business strategies. There are two camps when it comes to business, especially when you're in that kind of solopreneur, growing your skills era of these types of businesses. And one is work for free until you have ample amounts of experience, or work for cheap. And then there's the camp that thinks that these newer photographers that are charging low prices are ruining the industry because it makes their well-experienced prices sound ridiculous. For instance, in the fitness coaching space, I have seen coaches in my realm charge anywhere from $100 a month to $1,000 a month. And while I don't know that I could ever justify charging, even at 30 years experience or whatever it would be, I don't know that I would go much higher than my current prices are. I would rather take more people on to make my financial goals or run other businesses I completely understand the camp that says, hey, these lower prices can cause issues in the industry because people like to price shop. And it was the same thing with photography, right? Newer photographers doing things for free. And again, you get what you pay for in the business space with coaching, with photography, with hair and nails at events, makeup. Newer artists and newer business owners are gonna have a few flubs because they're new. And if you know that going in, like there was a wedding my husband and I shot where it was basically kind of on a low. They paid for our accommodations while we were there, but that was about the extent of it because we wanted experience and I wanted an excuse to play with a new rental camera. So I shot the wedding with them in mind, but they were extremely grateful to us and they weren't super picky about every shot that we took and let us experiment as artists and trusted us to do what we felt best, unlike my family. And that was when I started to learn that working for family and working with family is not always the best thing, right? My cousin has now got into the photography space and there is not a chance in hell I would shoot with him if he asked me to. If they needed a second and I happened to be there, there is not a chance in hell that I would do it with him. Just because I have learned through business that working with family and for family is just not a good thing. Mixing that personal relationship with the business. The only person I would trust, and even then it's a little bit iffy depending on the level of support needed, is my husband. And like I said, I used to be a wedding photographer with him, but I was under the impression when I started that business with him that if it was a package deal where we were doing an engagement shoot and the wedding, I was probably shooting the engagement by myself and he would come and do the wedding with me because the weddings were on the weekends and engagements we could pull into doing on Fridays and things like that where he was still working his day job. I would never expect him to leave his day job for the businesses we own together unless he wants to, because he genuinely loves his day job. So while there is one person I would work for and intertwine or work with and intertwine my businesses with, the rest of my family I have learned through a time is just a no-go. Even doing free services for my family is a no-go. As a fitness coach now, my mom has offered to be a guinea pig in each of my different certifications and be a client of mine. And even my dad at one point offered to be a client of mine, and I said no to my mother because I know how she works. My dad was at least paying me, and even then he was one of the most difficult clients on the face of the planet. And to be fair to him, he was a bariatric parent or bariatric client, and at the time I didn't fully understand the needs from a training perspective, but also from a nutrition perspective of what he was really intaking as a post-surgery patient, and he wasn't even 6 months post-sleeve surgery. So the difference in his capability of training and everything was a new thing to me that I didn't fully understand. And that's why I felt comfortable taking him on, because he was my parent. And while I should have stuck to my guns and not charged him full price, not knowing, I was still very new to the industry, and my mentor was like, yeah, charge full price, you're ready for this. And I shouldn't have, and I've learned that now, but again, it was family. So while I wasn't the best coach, my family also weren't the best clients. My mother, my grandmother, and her sisters, I will never coach a day in my life because they refuse to get off of the weird fitness trend things. My mom's side of the family is of the type that believes carbs are bad and they only need carbs when they're running. And I'm not that type of person. I will not coach that way, and I will not say that what they're doing is okay. They have gone to the Optavia world to lose weight. And while I can talk about MLMs in a completely different episode, and I likely will, Optavia is quite honestly one of the worst, nutritionally speaking, programs you could ever deal with. And yes, every individual has different nutritional needs and different calorie intake needs. No grown adult should be eating around 800 calories a month. or a day, a month. That would be absolutely insane. And so my family repeatedly returning to Optavia made it so that I knew, despite the fact that I would love for them to learn things the proper way, they are very much so stuck in their own ways, and I would never work with them as clients unless they came to me and they were paying my full rates. I learned with the photography business that if I am going to work with them, they're at least going to pay me. And if they are paying me, I have to accept that they are going to be some of the most difficult clients I have ever worked with, and I will not be able to get them the results that I truly want to get them because, well, I am a product of them, and my stubborn levels are at an all-time high, and they are just worse than me. They are the older version of me and 10 times more stubborn. When it comes to working with family, I learned a long time ago that at minimum, they're paying me full price. There is no discounts for family. There is no, I will do this for free because you're family. You are paying me my rates, and you are doing it my way if I am doing this for you. But when it comes to friends, a lot of people will go and make crazy financial decisions and business decisions with friends. And I feel like if the Facebook with Mark Zuckerberg, that is the guy who owns Facebook, with Andrew Garfield, the movie that basically tells the whole story of how Facebook came to be, and Mark Zuckerberg is who he is now. Those were two friends, and look how that turned out. You look at people like Elon, who've bought his way into companies and are now destroying companies like Tesla that had a good concept in theory and now is being boycotted and set on fire and protested at purely because of who their CEO is. When it comes to representation and working with friends, you have to know that everybody is on the same page. And if everybody's not on the same page, things like my podcast that I just ended happen. While some people may think that simply canceling the podcast because she couldn't record at the time that we used to always record is a little bit extreme, there's bigger story to it. Since the beginning of this podcast, it has been a struggle to get her to record on a reasonable basis. But on top of that, it has also been difficult to meet deadlines with her. And as a friend, she's great. But as a business partner, I couldn't keep doing it because I knew if I put the time and effort into growing that podcast, it would grow. Because it's a topic that a lot of people relate to. But if we started getting sponsors that are requiring us to have dates where the episodes go out, that wasn't happening. Either because podcast renditions when I was editing were crashing in the early days of me trying to edit the podcast, or because there wasn't enough episodes in the backlog to get the ones that we needed to get out edited in time. I feared that as we continued to go down that pipeline of growing the podcast and getting more and more listens and more views on YouTube, that if it really truly was going to become a monetized podcast and business, we would never be able to do things in a timely manner and be consistent due to the lack of commitment from her. And I should have seen that in the beginning. As a business owner who has gone through this a few times, there are things that I should have seen in the beginning, but it wasn't until she started signing up to record on a Friday morning and then not showing up, and her only reasoning for not showing up was I slept through my alarms, that I realized I didn't want to grow a business with this person. So now I'm taking everything completely on my own, and I refuse to take client handouts, if you will, from my family to put before and afters and social proof together. I even coached my podcast co-host, and she was one of the worst clients I've ever worked with as well. Not quite the worst, but she wasn't easy to coach either. And we all have difficult clients. I'm not saying I can't work with difficult clients, but when I'm doing it for free and as a favor to you, or you're doing it as a favor to me so I can get a certification or participate in some challenge. We were doing a challenge when I offered to coach her. And the thing is she kept coming back to me after that challenge where she refused to listen to anything I had to say, really, and wanting me to give her programming and help her with her post-surgery world, but not ever offering to actually pay me for my services. She constantly wanted me to help her, and that's fine if I have a cookie cutter program, but I'm not going to do anything customized. You got 3 months of free training, you know? And that sounds super selfish of me, but at the end of the day, I'm running a business. And I should have learned from those who've learned these lessons long before me, but sometimes you have to learn things the hard way. And working with family and friends was something I hoped that was unique to every person, and some people could actually do it. I didn't think my own family would in fact be the people that made my job miserable, and they were. I didn't think that my friends who wanted to be coached when I had a free opportunity would be the ones that completely blew it off. So when it comes to working with people, I have just decided that I'm not going to mix personal relationships anymore. Any streamer or person that I talk to online is no longer a personal relationship building, it is a business relationship building. And that is okay. And if eventually people I collab with in the space do actually become friends, that's great, because then I'll be surrounding myself with people that want the same things I do. And we can commiserate together and build businesses together. And hopefully I will find a few people that are closer in size to me, but also a little larger, so that I can learn from them and learn from their mistakes growing as a content creator, but also as a business person. Because the other thing is while I do have a business mentor, I feel light years behind everybody in that group. So it is hard sometimes to want to interact with all these coaches that are so much farther ahead than I am. They're ready to buy up other people's businesses and hire assistant coaches and be 6-7 figure businesses. And I love that for them, because that's awesome. And it's inspiring to me to see what people have done, because there are plenty of people who were in a similar position to me, where they were in the tech world as a corporate drone and did become a corporate dropout, and it has bettered their life. But it's also extremely intimidating, because I don't feel like how they did it is a way that works for me. So copying and cloning is not always the answer. And I guess when it comes to the business, you want people, right? A lot of people talk about your friends show their true colors when it comes to simply just supporting you on a business venture, even if it's something as simple as engaging on a platform. I don't want to rely on my friends and family to share my stuff. I don't want that to be a thing. I just don't. I don't trust them, I guess. And I'm a very mistrusting person, and that's a me thing. But I don't trust anyone to be in my corner at this point, because some of the people that I swore would always be in my corner are the people that have fucked me over in my businesses in the past. So while I would love to say that, it's perfect and everything, your friends are going to be your most supportive people, and they're going to be the ones in the corner. It's strangers on the internet that are usually the biggest people in my corner. I have found other coaches that are just starting out and love the advice that I'm capable of giving them, which is very few. And I love that for me. I love that for other creators that have also started to take advice from things that I've learned, because I've learned through trial and error, and not everyone has to do that. But I would also love if I had, a little army in the background supporting me, and I've never had that as a business owner. And if you do, I am happy for you. I'm happy that you could rely on your friends and family to start your initial business and coach them for free, and they actually took you seriously, and not just like this is some random commitment of the day. That would be awesome to have had that and have all of your guinea pigs and all of the things that you need to get all of your certifications done and all of your initial social proof, and you got to do it for free, and you didn't have to worry about building a business behind the scenes and charging people when maybe you don't have all the answers. But I didn't have that, and I tried to do that with friends and family and it failed miserably. And so now I'm very closed up and this is my solo journey, and starting to open up again and hang out in Twitch chats again and talk to people in Discords and not just try to be like, I'm very salesy and strategic. Build actual relationships is hard because I feel like in business specifically, I've been screwed so many times. So many people have used my photography skills to their own benefit. And so many people have used my content creation skills to their own benefit to grow their own platforms. And I am by no means a large creator. And people are already doing it to me. And I guess mimicry is the best form of flattery or whatever that saying is. And they also say when you start to attract haters, you're doing something right. But I want to grow my business before everyone on the internet hates me. It's one thing if I am, huge and I have a couple hundred haters. Another when I am just starting out and there's haters in my comments nonstop. Now that has changed over time for sure, but it is a wild time right now. And I'm going into this scholarship again, once again, not feeling like I've truly grown my community enough that someone would actually participate as a scholarship client. But we'll see. I finally have links on TikTok, so I can actually just be like a link in bio for my scholarship announcement this time. I don't have to get them to go through like 500 levels of nonsense and bullshit. But I don't know. I never felt like my personal relationships, I would rather work with strangers on the internet than deal with my personal relationships and changing those. Because every time I did, in fact, change those things or utilized those things, it either was the worst thing I ever did and made me miserable and really didn't give me anything useful for my portfolio. That's the other thing, right? When I worked with my family, because they never set me up for success, they never let me go get the appropriate gear because they didn't give me enough time to get the appropriate gear. So I have like really poorly lit photos and poor like lighting, not lighting, but like washed out and things like that when I was in photography. And with the fitness business side, right, I am reliant on clients communicating with me. If they don't respond to me and give me answers to how they're actually doing things, right? If they're not tracking or giving me some inclination to what they're eating, I can't help them adjust their macros or what they're doing as a nutrition business. If they're not responding to the messages I'm sending them, I can send 500 messages a day and they still don't actually get help. Because I don't know, I can't read people's minds. When you're reliant on an online space, right? If they're coming in and the scale is actively changing, you can kind of like call them on their bullshit. But online, you're limited on people actually communicating properly. And I have a whole piece of my contract that says like, hey, I will commit to communicating. And I understand that I can only be coached to the point that I am participating. But a lot of coaches will get blamed for not being good coaches when their clients aren't even communicating with them. So it's hard. And I'm not blaming clients. I've obviously found new methods of communicating and everything else. But when you're not set up for success and you want to utilize free services, if you will, it's a little bit different. And I don't know. I learned throughout business that that's my number one thing is don't work with family or friends unless they are paying you full prices. Don't discount it for families. Don't allow them to get free services because they're your family. Don't even do a couple edits for your family just because you want to, because they will never appreciate it. And friends to some extent, and maybe it's just my friends. Maybe my friends are just bad friends and I choose the wrong types of people. I don't know. But I have also had a very similar thing with friends where they love the fact that you do all these cool things and they want you to give them advice constantly, but they don't want to actually support the business. And that's kind of my don't do business with friends and family lecture, if you will. I definitely don't start businesses with them because that mixing of relationships just makes things so complicated. Because I'm struggling being a friend with my podcast co-host right now. I'm just not responding to her messages because I feel so weird about the podcast situation. It's not because I feel like I did anything wrong, but also just because you didn't respect me enough and my work enough, if you will, to show up and record. That was all she ever had to do for the podcast. I edited, I did the social media, I put it all up. I paid for the hosting software and the recording software. All she had to do was show up and record and occasionally look up a topic, because I would throw topics at her all the time. She wouldn't, very rarely would she give a topic she wanted to talk about. The effort level was minimum because I knew this was my business and my kind of pet project, if you will. But at the end of the day, it was our podcast, and her not taking it seriously, it kind of put a new light on her to me when she would just blow off recording because she overslept and not be an adult and show up on time. And it's not like I just assumed she would be there. I would confirm the day before that she did in fact plan on recording, which is even more difficult for me to kind of wrap my head around. When people don't respect my time is one of my biggest issues, right? It's the same thing when I coach. If I have a client that just doesn't respect my time and they show up late to calls or whatever, that's when I get kind of in the weeds of why am I here? And I, unfortunately, with friends, while friendship isn't transactional, there are plenty of my friends that I don't talk to all the time, but I know that if I'm in town and I hit them up, I'm like, hey, you want to try to get lunch or something? We will make an effort to go do that. And then there are the ones that only seem to be there when it's convenient to them. It's what I feel right now. Business makes things a lot more difficult. Trying to be an entrepreneur makes things a lot more difficult because they say you are a product of the people you surround yourself with. Well, if I'm never around other entrepreneurs, then how can I expect to be a successful one? And that's why I pay out the ass to be a part of a mentoring group, even though I don't utilize them to the fullest right now. Because seeing the success of other mentors and having that line of communication with a guy who has had multiple 6 and 7 figure businesses and can turn around a 7-figure business in 6 months is necessary to me. To be around those types of people and be, quote unquote, in the room with them, rather than relying on people who have nowhere near the same interests to help me build this journey. No, I'm motherfucking losing my mind if I think that's gonna happen. So, that being said, I am no longer working with friends and family, and really, at this point, the only business my husband's name might be on is if we open a pool hall, because realistically, that would be our thing. I would run the majority of it, but he also would be a huge part in it because he is the social king and he could get the pool leagues and everything else in as a player himself. So that would be the only business I would even share with him at this point. And there has been thoughts and talks of restarting up a photography business, but I think I might just incorporate my photography skills into my current businesses and do photo shoots of clients in cosplay as a package, or do professional product shots for the supplement company that I work with, Advanced, if they want it. If I'm at something like Mega, or do social media for them at MegaCon next year, whatever it is. But that is that. And let me know if you were a fellow entrepreneur who has, in fact, worked with family and it's been successful, or started a business with one of your best friends and it actually worked, because I would love to see success stories, because I'm so jaded by my experience that while I'm sitting here on this mic talking about don't ever do this with friends and family, it's a waste of your time, I understand that plenty of people have seen success in starting business with family and starting business with friends, and they've utilized friends to start their initial small businesses. But I have not seen that same level of support. I've seen more support from strangers on the internet than I have my own friends and family, and that made me turn into a very recluse and secluded type of person, because if I'm going to be successful, it is on me and me alone. My husband's not going to do it, my family's not going to do it, my friends are not going to do it. Even if I would love for them to be supportive, that's not the case. So let me know if you have any of that in the comments below. And if you are a fellow entrepreneur, small content creator that wants to get larger, whatever it is, if you would like to hang out and be a part of this chaotic ride as well, feel free to put something in the comments or hit that subscribe button or hit a like button if you relate to this. But for now, I guess that's my advice. Don't start business or integrate personal relationships into your business, especially in the early years. Later on, maybe you can bring them in to help you if they have skill sets you need, but I wouldn't recommend working with family or friends that are close to you if you don't want to ruin those relationships in the end. However, that is it for today's Chaos and Fuckery episode. So I appreciate you for being here, and I hope you enjoyed the chaos and you can maybe relate to some of my fuckery in my early years.